Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Good evening and welcome to November 10th, 2021 meeting of the Westminster Select Board. I'll call the meeting to order. First, I want to make sure that those of us joining us, I want to welcome everybody. First of all, thank you for being here. I want to make sure that members of the public online can hear me and that they can participate. They all set? Okay. Adjustments to the agenda?
I have nothing, John.
So I have
Go ahead.
two possible adjustments, one under 6A and 6B. I didn't see the asterisks next to those as being actionable items for the select board, so we'll need a vote on those items tonight.
The asterisk is beside new business, and if you read the note at the bottom, it says items involving potential select board issues.
So all these items involved underneath 6 and
From 5 and 6.
okay, I didn't know all
8.
Always had it. Fair enough. We learned that new tonight.
Clarification suffice?
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Also at this time, under new business, we have executive sessions scheduled for 2 executive sessions, one to include the town manager regarding the highway department, and a second executive session with the select board only for an employee review. I will take a motion to proceed to those with a vote now.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion has been made to go for the board to go to executive session on the 2 under F and G, new business. Has been seconded. All those has been made. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, executive session have been set. Any other adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to the acceptance of minutes of October 27th, 2021.
I move we accept the minutes of the meeting of October 27th as printed.
I'll second.
Motion to accept the minutes of October 27th, 2021 have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say none. Minutes are adopted. Moving on to communication and public comments.
We have a letter. It's just a thank you from Westminster Cares for their portioned check for $5,000 that they received on 10/12/21. It's addressed to Pauline, but she thought it would be nice for you folks to know that. If anybody's interested, I can hand you the letter.
Okay. Any other communications and public comments? Yes, Mr. Major.
Kevin, I just got a couple of things that I want to share from the school district. One is just to update you on the fact that at this coming town meeting time, we'll have to be electing 3 new school board members. If you have any ideas for school board people who might be good candidates, please share them or encourage those people to put their names forward. They're also, because of the funky situation where the Westminster School Board doesn't actually go into effect until July 1 of 2022, we still need to have 2 representatives on the union board with Athens and Grafton. We've got 2 now, but their terms are going to be up in March, so we have to have 2 people who will be stand-in candidates for a couple of months until the end of June of 2022, so we'll have to have an election for that. We did not elect a school board, a moderator for the school district meeting, as we have a moderator for the prudential meeting, prudential district meeting, and for the town. So we're going to have to elect a moderator from the floor at town meeting, apparently, is what I'm told by a lawyer, folks. The second item is related to the billing. You had asked the Union School District to compensate the town for the extra election expenses, and for the expenses related to running the elections and for extra billing for taxes. I brought that to the Union District members. I'm not on the Union District. They turned it down with the reasoning being related to election expenses. All the other two towns, Athens and Grafton, were covering the election expenses, and they felt that Westminster should cover election expenses for whatever elections. And second was that it appears from the town report, and this is still, I think, unclear to Russ and to me, but that the town somehow or other got payment or withheld payment from the state to cover extra billing expenses in our most, and that's evident in the most recent town report. So that's a confusion. So it was enough of a confusion that there was no vote made to pay that bill. And then finally, I am coming to invite the select board to, or members of the select board to participate in the ESSR grants that are for school systems that are coming as related to COVID recovery monies for schools. In order to get the grants, we need to have townspeople involved, not just school officials and so on. So we actually have been approved for ESSER 1 and 2. ESSER 3, I think, will be coming up. It might be in the neighborhood for the whole supervisory union of $15,000 to $17,000 million. So huge, huge, huge amount of money. And so it would behoove us all, I think, to pay attention to that. And at some point, the superintendent will be getting in touch probably with you, Kevin, or you, Russ, just to let you know when the meetings might be happening, so you could attend at least one and get your opinions in and also get registered as having participated.
So thank you very much for that update. So we will need town manager and at least one member of the select board for these meetings that they will announce us to, and while we have it. Who would like to do that? Any volunteers here from the select board to be part of that along with the town manager, unless the town manager also feels he doesn't have the time to be there?
No,
You're in. Anyone else?
And just as an idea, a whole bunch of ideas have cropped up, but one is moving the SU office to the high school, making a separate building, using the money to do that, and also have additional preschool building with it or something. You know, there's just all kinds of ideas that are floating out there too.
I'll volunteer.
Excellent. So Sue Harlow will be our representative. And thank you for the update. Any comments or amplifications for that, what Mr. Major had to say? Anyone have any questions? Okay, seeing none. One more clarification before we move on. On tonight's agenda, you're going to see that to the right, the town manager and I put in green just a list of minutes for each subject. This is simply to, some towns do it. It's part of best practices or potential best practices. And we're simply putting that in there to see how long we actually take. But everyone should know this is in no way, without exception, no one who wishes to comment at all, especially from the general public, taxpayers, what have you, their commentary will not, without exception, ever be limited, or the commentary ever be limited on any subject. This is just a guidepost to see how we're doing and how long it's taking us for each subject. So other towns are doing it. We figured we'd give it a shot. Okay, let's move on to unfinished business. The American Rescue Plan, ARPA. Committee update.
we had a second meeting to talk about the $880,000 plus or minus that the town is receiving, if we can use it. We seem to have a lot of good ideas that are being kind of spread around and talked about. Nothing set in stone. But at this point, we did receive a very good explanation of the program from Katie Buckley, who was from VLCT, and she gave a great presentation to us, and so it's moving. We have another meeting. I can't remember the date, and I asked John. We can't come up with a date.
I believe it's the 23rd, 24th of this month.
Okay, so we'll again be publishing that so people can come if they want to and join the meeting. So
I want to thank Russell and John and Cynthia Stoddard and Katie Buckley and everyone else for that, for being there, setting it up. I want to thank the Institute for getting all set up. Jim Mattow did a great job. And I know Jim, I don't want to speak for you, but Jim did say that he was going to get some questions together for the committee also to go out, and questions were to be, some people had questions. Hopefully those will be cobbled together before our next meeting.
When is the next meeting?
I'll let you know.
He will let you know. It's
Okay.
soon.
It is.
Any public comment on ARPA? Okay, seeing none. Hartley Hill Road, private
No.
section update?
No update for tonight.
Okay. Financial discussion. Darlene Kelly, welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm not really sure. I think we're just going back over what I had brought last time and talking a little bit about, I sent Kevin and Russ the spreadsheet of the folks with the ACH issues. That's in your, I think it was in your packet here. I just
It
looked.
is. Yep.
Yep. So I guess I
Two
could
pages.
explain that
This one?
a little bit.
Yes.
So back in February of 2021, you had some payments that were processed incorrectly at the bank. They were processed in the accounting system correctly, but when the batch was pulled into the bank, it was the wrong batch, so there was a shortage in these folks' taxes. So what I gave you was what was processed in the tax administration module, so processed in NEMRIC, what was processed at the bank, and what the difference of those two columns are. And I gave you the interest that these taxpayers have been charged, and if any of them have come in since and paid those differences. So it's about $9,800 of delinquency that taxpayers may not be aware of. I'm not sure where the correspondence lays right now with letting the taxpayer know.
Have we sent letters to the,
Paul has known about this for a while, but he hasn't got to it yet.
is he supposed to be sending the letter?
Yes. So we'll get after that.
Won't these people see that it didn't correspond, that the amount of money taken out of their checkbook didn't correspond to the amount that they got for taxes, is what they would see?
I would say some of them, but some of them it's only
It's only
$3
a
or
little bit.
$4. So
Yeah.
Right.
honestly, I probably wouldn't notice that.
Right.
But yeah, the other one that's 3,000, yes.
Yeah.
But I personally think we should be sending out a letter as soon as possible to the taxpayers, and they were charged interest and it wasn't to their, I guess you could say it was at their knowledge, but I think that you should honestly be looking at giving them some reprieve on the interest, because we haven't brought it to their attention either.
We have in the past, whenever something like this we have always waived the interest on it, but it has to be approved by the board.
Yeah, we talked about this the last meeting, right? But we
Yeah.
didn't vote on it?
That's correct.
Yeah, we didn't vote on it, but we can make a motion that we would waive all the fees, a total, was it 300?
Yeah, they weren't charged penalty because I didn't discover this error until the end of June when I was helping get things ready for your audit. So that already missed the February penalty. that would have been assessed after the February payment. So they weren't assessed penalties, they've
Correct.
just been assessed interest.
And we're, the total $325, by the way.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to the select board that we waive the total of $325.27 for the interest charged to this group of people who you get the correct amount of money taken from their checking account.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any additional public comment on this issue? Seeing none, take the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes.
So I think we were also kind of waiting, I think, for Jason at the time, but I'm not sure about kind of looking over this sample of what a highway fund would look like, but sitting on its own. And kind of need direction from you if that's how you want to proceed, trying to renumber and set up this fund on its own so that it can be clearly identified what is highway-related expenses and revenues and what their fund balance is from year to year.
It was what I was thinking of. I don't know what the rest was. It's just,
So it's, again, it's not a separate tax rate that you need to vote on. It's like other funds that you already have on the books. It's just very clear that it's highway-related. We do need to move the benefits. If you go this route, I strongly believe you need to move the benefits related to the highway and the salaries related to the highway and the tax FICA Medi match from the town to the highway fund also. We did not do that in this quick analysis that Chip Stearns helped me with at work. So those items would need to be added over here so you can get a clear understanding of what the highway department is costing the town.
did we broken all into the 102 category? Is that what it was still?
Yes, it would be all in 102. It would just, be in, we would have a section that was salaries and benefits, so that you could see what everything.
Yeah.
And so it would be a restructuring of your chart of accounts somewhat because we don't have enough funds available with your current account structure. In the big scheme of things, that's probably not a lot to you folks. It's more the day-to-day of finances, and Kelly and Paul it's more on the three of us, honestly, that it's gonna look this, the only really things that are gonna change are the first 3 digits and the middle 4 digits. Everything else is gonna be labeled the same. They would just be separated into a fund by itself. So I kind of need your authorization to do that.
So I have a question.
Please.
So I guess, the only disadvantage is the renumbering, which would cause some confusion for a while to the accounting people, and it would take a while to renumber it? Is that?
It wouldn't take a while to renumber it, and this would be providing Kelly with a new chart of accounts as she codes the bills, or code your own bills, or Chuck to code his own bills. He would honestly, it'd probably be easier, give him one chart of just 102 fund, that's all his highway money, then that's his to code, those are the new accounts he uses. Kelly would be the same thing. So it's not, I don't think that much added work to look at the new chart of accounts and write down. It is if he's memorized, or Kelly's memorized, just rememorizing numbers.
So are there any other disadvantages to breaking this budget out?
I would say the only disadvantage might be that if we do it and put it in the books, in the past, we've always had to have, that's whenever we change, that was always a complaint, because we start a new category, now you can't compare it to where you were for the last 3 or 4 years. But we've done so many times, we've done that where we all of a sudden change it, so then we really do. Once we do it and we keep doing it that way, it's going to make a lot of sense. It really will. I think the first year they're going to why does this not look the same as it has in the past? Because we realigned it. But Once you did it the following year and following year, then you will have a better control over exactly what's happened with the highway crew.
Yes, sir.
Would it include, is this just expenses, or would it also
No,
include
revenue.
revenue, FEMA, and whatever it might be?
So not FEMA, because I want to try to keep FEMA by itself, because that's a special event in my eyes, and so that's what I suggest, that you're kind of looking at that as a separate fund, because it's a hopefully one-time event, or that, so that's gonna, that stays in its own fund, but this would be just highway operating, like every day-to-day highway stuff. Not any
We would still
special.
put grant money in there though, right? Any grant money would come in.
Reimbursement would have to.
Right, yeah.
Well, I would recommend your grants go to a separate fund and this only be your operating fund. All of your grants staying in one fund together. So, but matches would flow between operating and the grant fund.
Mr. Jones, you have input.
Yeah, I see the vision, I support the vision separating. My thing, maybe we'll talk about it later, but we're pitching a grant opportunity for the highway from AOT. And to have that under AOT, so you know where it is, if we get 20 AOT and others and we put them into one account, I don't know how common that may become, and I could be wrong.
No, you just separate them by revenue.
Okay.
Account numbers and everything, grant related revenues and expenditures stay together. In my mindset as a finance person, you're not intermingling those with your everyday operating fund. That you want to see what is the highway costing the town to operate on an everyday basis. And if it's grant coming back, if it was for guardrails, like Chuck has said a few times, so I get charged, guardrails were taken out of my budget, but the money isn't. So in my mind, both the expenses for the guardrail would sit in that grant, and so would the revenues. So it's never gonna hit, if it had to be split between everyday use of highway and a grant, then you would split it, but if you did something, if you hauled for that grant, then it's going towards that grant.
So
in
the
grant
expenditure
fund.
wouldn't actually come out of his
Correct.
budget, because his budget was there. He would just say, okay, I'm going to go over and do something that I don't normally do, but I'm getting paid by the grant money. So that's what, that actually makes sense.
That clarifies it, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that
then,
actually does.
if he's
Yeah.
asking for a match if
Yeah.
highway needs to match somebody more than labor, then he budgets for a match in his everyday operating, and then the operating money transfers to the grant fund what they need to match. It's not, you're not intermingling non-everyday operating stuff with everyday operating.
So the
Chuck.
grant, I'm sorry. So
Chuck
the grant
Lawrence.
fund is just one big pool of money.
Well,
So I
but,
can't, as a taxpayer, I'm reading the town report, and that line item just says grant money.
no, it would be each grant would have its own GL account.
Okay,
So in each, so
So it's
grant,
itemized.
like 5 grants you got, then you got all your expenses that are directly the same, like, account forming, so that you can say, okay, there's the revenue, 5325.
right.
Okay, down here's the expense for that same, say, this grant fund, 5325, expense consulting. But this is where you got the revenue, but it's each line, you're not putting one lump sum, no, that's.
So if you had a $50,000 grant to put a box culvert in, she would then say, here's 50,000, and then you would reach in and go, oh, we just did so much for the gravel and fill, but
Yeah.
meanwhile, the box was paid by this, and meanwhile, Bucky Adams got the contract to do this. It would all keep coming out of that until there was no money left on the grant.
Correct, and that's what like Rockingham does, but below that, they would have also your match. So it shows that I have X amount of gravel involved with that grant.
Yeah,
That's not the same as my operating expense.
it keeps coming, it doesn't touch your operating expense.
Right.
It doesn't touch your
Right.
operating expense.
That's, to me, a whole separate
Yeah.
animal.
If you decide that you don't have time to go and do anything with the grant, then you don't get any of the money from the grant. You see what I'm saying? you got so much money the grant is, and you're thinking in my agenda was to originally go in and I'll do part of it. Now you say I'm too busy, so we hire it out. It doesn't affect you at all,
Correct.
because you never went and did it, so you didn't have any cost.
Right.
Makes sense what she said.
Sue Harlow.
So would the grant be part of the revenue in the budget? I'm thinking is if you do the work one year and you don't get the grant till the next year, or vice versa, you get the grant one year, but you don't do the work until the next year, then the 2 years, fiscal years would be not the same.
Yeah, you do that now, though.
Right.
Because we have to pay for the job before we get
Yeah.
the monies.
So it's gonna sit out
So
in
it's
the
gonna
grant
sit,
fund.
it's gonna sit very nicely on the separate report, but it's still going to be revenue coming in, and he'll overexpend to pay for.
Well, he won't overexpend in his budget. No, it will be in this grant fund. The grant fund may hold a negative fund balance with the anticipation of revenue coming. That's pretty typical.
Yeah.
It'll
Makes
be
sense.
interesting to explain.
So
Yeah.
Be
it's,
good.
so you're getting mixed up again with cash.
Yeah.
Is cash. We'll have the cash to do this, but in the fund may have a negative fund balance
But
going into the next year with knowing the anticipation of the revenue is coming to make that fund whole.
if it has a positive balance, it's got to follow the highway.
Right, exactly. That is the key, because it would be
You're not,
highway money.
it's a biased opinion though.
No, it's state law.
So the recommendation that you've got, if this is starting July 1st, or you chop the year in half and try to do it now?
Well, we would need to wait for Chad to give us the final figures for the audit to break out the fund balance. So at any point, when we get that, that can be done. Because it's just tying back that fund balance based on what we know the different categories are, what he says the final fund balance is, and we just want to make sure highway gets their correct fund balance that sits in your fund balance currently, how it properly gets allocated, how much to highway and how much gets allocated to, say, in the general fund.
So the audited bill.
Correct, the
I
audited
guess,
fund
I think what
balance.
Russ is probably thinking is, are we gonna get this done for this year's book?
That, and we, of course, are halfway, not halfway,
Yeah.
almost halfway through our year. So all of the expenses will have to be.
Yep.
How long is this going to take you?
Chip did it in, I think, 2 days. He took the backup, so we didn't do it on live data, just so you know, Jason. You back up to our server every night.
Yep.
And so Chip went in, and he just had to, in his mind, think what the account structure was gonna be like, and once he did that, it took him about a day or two to do it.
Roughly how much money is that gonna cost us?
I don't have any idea on that, so I can double check.
Because we'd be hiring them right to do it.
And they'd have to, yeah.
The initial.
Right, initial. Once we set it up, we would be just following it.
Right, it's an initial setup.
Per your observation, though, you would, which is wise, we want to have a opinion from Chad, correct?
You can ask Chad by all means, but we need the audited fund balance to do it. But by all means, I feel confident that he's gonna say either way.
Okay.
I mean, most towns do this.
How soon can we hear from him?
I'll call them tomorrow.
So if we simply, would it be problematic if we made our final decision at our next meeting?
No.
Pending Chad's input?
Yeah, it's up to you folks, how you wanna handle it.
Well, would this be voted on separate at town meeting?
You don't have to.
It could be lumped together
Yeah.
and just be, not lumped together.
You
Yeah.
would go through, it'd be no different than we go through each
Right.
one and then we discuss it and then just moderator right there just passes it through. It's as simple
I
as
think
that.
it would just help in the discussion.
Agreed, oh, yeah, no. I just was,
Some towns do, like the town I came from did vote highway separate. You don't have to.
Any input from our fellow citizens online? Okay, seeing none, then we'll be set for the next meeting pending the input from Chad. Your other recommendations, we have voted on one, we have pending
So I'm
resolution.
just wondering, so I guess I need some clarity from the board. When I see things that maybe aren't best practices in the books, do I need to come to you? Do you want me to come to you and ask you everything? Or can I implement these changes? Not like that. That's a major change of your books. I'm not saying this, but everyday processing of things, if I see something that's not best practice, are you expecting me to come to you and ask permission to fix that? Or is that something that we're gonna do? So in this case, like the zoning, I went to ask about the zoning salary. Kelly said, nope, there's more discussion that's gotta be had. And I'm just a little confused why that's such a hold up to do something that's best practices, to not like just move forward with posting payroll to that department every single pay period versus one lump sum. So I feel like I've come here twice now. Is that something that is how you want to proceed with my role? And I just kind of need clarity from you guys.
That's an excellent question. Obviously, you're doing a great job, and the utilization of best practices is exactly why you're here, to make sure that we are conducting ourselves with the best practices and fixing where we are not. So when we have a discussion on it, I'm just going to say right off the bat, I have no problem. To me, when you use the word best practices in this situation, that's what you're supposed to be doing. So certain implementations that don't require, you think that are really big, that don't require our input, I don't have any problem you using your best judgment based on your experience. That's me, though.
I would like a report, so after
Yeah,
I make a
absolutely.
report, so I did this
Absolutely,
and this is why,
Yep.
whatever.
And I would think that if you are affecting, that those people have right to come to us and said, this is what she did, and we would have the discussion. But
Yep.
I've been here so long that we've been accused in the past of hiring people, and they were saying, I said, well, why are you criticizing me? Because I'm just a select person, and I did pick up, well, it's not our job. You didn't hire us. We see things going on, but you didn't hire us to point it out to you. And I just think that I'll never hire you to point it out to me unless you come to me and point it out to me,
Yep.
because I don't know what's wrong,
Yep.
So yes, I think that's why we're here now.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Kevin and Sue.
Yeah,
So-
and nothing major, no, like, I'm not talking restructuring of your books, but like just simple tasks that maybe need to get like tightened up or a little clearer on how things are posted when, such like that.
I would also think you've been doing it long enough that you see something that that might cause some repercussion, that
Yeah.
you would actually say, can I run it by Kevin
Mhm.
to get his opinion? And he
Yeah.
would actually then say, I'll either talk to the select board or I'll get back to you.
You also should talk to Paul.
Yep,
Okay, so again, thank you for everything you're doing.
Yeah.
Does that conclude everything, I think?
I think so. I wasn't clear on what you needed tonight. It's actually better probably to come to I don't mind coming to both meetings, but to report financially to you by the second meeting.
Yes.
Because you're not quite, by the 10th of the month, you're not quite all the way through everything financially, bank-wise sometimes, that I think you're more beneficial to get a full financial report at a second meeting of a month.
And you can also provide us with any updated best practices,
Yep.
initiatives, or
Absolutely.
changes you've made.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any further comment on the financial discussion with Darlene Kelly from the public? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the collaborative finance processing manual. Any updates?
So I sent you some documentation. I think maybe just Kevin and Rustin asked to forward it on to the board. just kind of giving you a sense of what I've been working on and what I envision of processing manual should look like, step-by-step instructions. So I don't know if you all got that, but I sent that last week. I didn't print it out because it's huge, but I sent it in an email.
Oh,
I sent it in an email, and it was step-by-step of samples of documentation of procedure manuals.
Can you send that again? I missed it, or I honestly don't.
I missed it as well, so I do apologize.
Okay, you commented on it, but I will send it again.
Yeah.
Yes, I can do that.
It came with an attachment.
Yep, I sent a whole bunch of attachments.
Yeah, sort of out of
All right.
sight, out of mind kind of thing, yeah.
I can do that. It's just a lot to keep printing out each time,
Yeah.
so I just thought, you know, if,
Yeah.
however, I mean, one day we could do a PowerPoint if you needed to, but I thought email was easier, so you guys could see.
Typically, I just forward your email so that they're not.
Yep.
Printing. All right.
Any more comments on collaborative finance processing manual? Okay, seeing none, moving on to July 29th, 2021 storm FEMA update.
We had a brief discussion, kind of a introduction with FEMA on Monday, where Jason and Kevin both attended with Matt and myself, and Chuck was out of town. We have been notified that our big meeting of all of our information needs to be presented on November 17th, which is next Wednesday. They're coming here with a group of individuals, and we'll be meeting up here and going over all of our damage that we can show to date, and actually talk about the projects that we haven't yet done because they're a bid type of a project. So that's great news. Next Wednesday.
Any comments? Public? Thank you, Russell. Moving on, 5-year capital plan update.
I forwarded an interested party to Craig.
I called, but I didn't.
And Kevin, that we have interest in the Northwest Community House to help enhance it a little bit financially, so that they can use it for theatrical productions. And so it's kind of an interesting thought. So that is on the table, and Craig is going to get in touch with him.
I did, I left him a message.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of positive. So,
Yeah, it is.
Great, so you'll let us know?
Yeah, and there was several people that in that village that wanted to get together, including him over there. And I'll see if I can start to reach out to have a quick meeting. I'm just waiting for one more person to show up to give me an estimate for one last thing, then I can put together a whole proposal, what would it cost to basically open the building back up.
Very good. Any other updates or comments on the, yes, Sue
I
Arlo?
haven't, I'm not quite sure where to put this in, but I know we talked about replacing the fuel tanks in the town garage, and how to go about that, taking money from the money we have reserved for the town garage and putting it in the budget, I guess. I'm not quite sure how that works, but you wanted to get an updated.
So
Right.
I'm still working on that.
Yeah.
Prices have changed some,
Right.
and some of the procedures have changed a little bit.
So what does that mean?
Well, that means that basically, instead of us digging them up,
Yeah.
what we really need to do is there is a outfit that will come in, and will dig them up, replace them. We don't have to buy them from them, we can get them wherever, and they will discard, pump them, discard them, and sign
Sounds like
off
more
on
money,
them and all
yeah.
that. You can't just dig them up and throw them out in the pit, and
Yeah.
or take them to the junkyard, or there's rules and regulations.
On the new pumps, if there is oil companies out there, if you wanted to, that would actually, you need to investigate, that would give you in other words, they furnish the tank, just like propane.
Yeah.
You know, propane, they furnish the tank and you basically pay it off as you go along.
Sure.
We need to look into that too. That would be their tank, they would take care of
Yeah,
it.
but you're married to them, just like with chloride. If the price doubles, you pay it.
It's, you just basically put, they have to stay within a fee, they have to stay on a
Yeah.
price, you can always price them, they have to stay within the, they actually go off a market, they go off the rack, so you know what it is. And you're going to bid, you would actually, same as propane, you go to bid, you just basically say, if they get too high, somebody else takes the tank out and puts another tank in, so you can do that. I just think before we go and own the tank and have the maintenance, we should check that out.
We're talking an above-ground replacement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
It's
that's
a
what I
double
was
wall
talking about.
above ground
Yeah.
container, yeah.
So my question is, so this is gonna be a while before we have a final decision, so we would not put that in this next budget, or,
They're supposed to let me know within a week. I just got back from Montana
yeah,
2 days ago, so I
Yeah.
but, yeah, they're supposed to let me know
okay,
by the end of this week, beginning of next week. They had to work some numbers together,
okay,
but now I've got to look into this, so it'll
Yeah.
take a few minutes.
okay, I'm just trying to figure out the process of how we make this happen. Whether we take money from the reserve fund, the town garage fund, and put it in this year's budget, or how it works to replace those fuel tanks, or we wait till, I don't know when.
Your budget doesn't have enough money in it to cover, is what the initial charge was, correct?
That's what we're thinking.
The budget or the town garage fund?
The town garage fund
Yes,
does not have enough money in it to do what you're talking
Okay.
about right now.
all right,
So yes, that will have
right,
cost effectiveness. He
Yeah.
needs to get a firm price.
yeah,
Right.
okay,
So whatever you figure out.
But then, so I'll have to go to vote in March.
yeah, we would allocate
Because
more
you're
money
talking
into
about
the
If you're
allocating more
allocating more
money
money,
out
right.
of the,
garage,
So
into
if
the
you have a
garage fund,
surplus.
and then you take that out, or whatever, yeah,
but to make up the difference, whatever you're gonna do.
right,
But for these people the way things are nowadays in
Yeah.
today's world, that price changes by the month, by the week. I can't get a price on culverts, it changes every week. You
Yeah.
have to call ahead.
On the other hand, we actually end up with a leak, then we'll be able to officially use the emergency fund
Oh,
that we set around. Because that would
Yeah,
definitely
that's
qualify
right.
for emergency fund.
don't be careful what you wish.
Yes, it would.
Mhm.
Anything else? Okay, anything else in the capital plan? Yes, please.
I'm curious, where is this written, capital plan? I hear here and I hear here. Is anything written down to project out the money needed and the tax implication of this money? Like how many cents on the tax rate this capital plan evolves over the years? Because I hear things thrown out there, but do we know what the penny on the tax rate it could cause? Do you have any idea? Do you look at it that way?
Each committee, go ahead.
There's a difference between a maintenance and a capital. So yes, we have not as a board done anything on capital other than this building right here. We are looking at where we're going with the community in Northwest Westminster, and obviously we'd have to have an article and go to it. I'm not to a point where I have the total dollars, but I can to come up with a budget number. But I think also with that, the object was what are we going to, even if we go to the voters, what are we going to use the building for? You know, where the town garage, for example, we know what we're going to do. We need the building for this. This building, we knew what we needed to do because it was going to be used. The Northwest Westminster community one, which is the one I'm working on, the overall first question is, if we do put the capital into it, what are we going to use it for? And that's where I think we got to.
Well, I
gotta come to
would be curious why there's not a list of capital needs by the town. Do you have that?
Please.
We have one, it's old, so we've been updating it. And this is sort of my idea how we would do it. We would take all the buildings that the town owns, find out what we needed to do or wanted to do to upgrade them, what the cost would be, and how we would pay for it, and then prioritize.
Mhm.
So this all sounds very good, but then the problem is, like we have with the fuel tanks, from month to month, those prices change, and also getting quotes and figuring out what we need for the building. So it's not as cut and dried as you kind of like to see it, like a big, here it is, and here it is.
No, but
So-
I'm saying, do you, like even a ballpark, because to me, that's not just buildings, you're talking trucks, equipment. All of that is capital to the town.
It is
And
capital of the town
replacement of
for the,
those.
going to the town garage, to this building, the North Westminster community. We have a choice. We can actually sell it before we put any
Yeah.
money into it. But that is totally unique because it's a building we're not using. So when we were handed it to us, that was one of the choices before we put any money into it. Do we just want to just say, let's just sell it and get rid of it? The capital that she's talking about for the town garage, yeah, that's our building. We're gonna eventually have to do an addition. We're gonna have to take the tank out. Those are the things that Susan's working on, that eventually those are capital we're gonna have to spend on. North Westminster is gonna be a big one as far as, there again, we could go to the voters and say, it's just no use for this building. Let's not put any money in it, and let's just sell it and get rid of it. But I don't, so we're trying to come to that point where we make a long-term decision what we do with it.
Right.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't consider equipment and trucks, I mean, it's capital, but it's not, we already have line items for those things, right? Am I wrong?
But you're
No,
not,
we have years projected to replace.
Right.
Well, we're
but
replacing
you're,
schedule.
you're
yeah.
saving money every year into a reserve
Right,
to replace those.
right.
Okay. And so you know what effect that has on the tax rate. Like, I'm gonna ask for $20,000 of reserve, that's a penny on the tax rate that you're increasing the tax. So you're going to the voter saying, I know this, we need 5 cents on the tax rate for capital improvements in the town. Then we're gonna allocate it between here and here and here.
Right.
And you have a projection of how much you want to target every year to add to the tax rate to build that capital.
I think other than fuel tanks right now, we're kind of working towards that though, right? I mean,
I just
You gotta
haven't
get some-
seen anything in writing, and that's why I was asking.
right.
Every year, we have an article for the equipment replacement. So
Right,
that is being done. This is relatively new. They are working on each building, trying to assess the overall need of the building or the building, period. That's all we're working on right now. So overall, I think they're moving forward so that we can get to that point, which would be going to the taxpayers and saying, just like Craig said, do we even want to go any further than this? Or do you want to sell this building? Do we have a need for it? And, yeah.
But a macro strategic list, I think, is what you're saying is an excellent idea, and is probably something that we should immediately compile for those things that we're looking out at least in the 5 years. So I think it's an excellent suggestion. And I don't think it's too big of a burden for us to,
No, it's already done. You
Right.
guys
We're
are-
talking about it.
You guys are.
6 months.
Yeah,
We should
you guys
compile,
have that
but-
list, and so it's just.
and give an update on it in its totality. So I appreciate what you're saying. Mr. Jones?
Mr. Chair, if the list is there, could it be ready for the next meeting and maybe
Yes.
draft format so that everybody can have a chance to look at it?
Sure.
And then just be aware as you move through the process, I know we were looking at the town garage before for heating and stuff. There are programs out there throughout the state. So when you're looking at this saying, do we want to keep this building because we may have to invest as much? Let's look to our strategic partners. We have a couple here tonight to help us identify what we can use, what programs before we make those decisions. So to help offset our tax burden. So that's just a stakeholder talking. Thank you.
As a macro person and as a taxpayer,
Yes.
you can't always, if you're going to try and use the crystal ball, you're going to eat glass every time. I'm looking at a 5% COLA, really 6% COLA this year. Nobody thought we'd be looking at that. Of course, nobody thought we would had a COVID incident, which just barely impacts everybody financially, especially our taxpayers on the roll. So when we're doing strategic planning, I would just throw it out there that it is important to not just look at the micro breakdown. We have to plan for macro contingency. And we felt that keenly this summer with the storm. And I'm just throwing it out there as a fellow taxpayer, because we don't know if we plan ahead for more, if you have more set aside, and I know taxpayers feel the burden and they want that money explained immediately, but having the money put aside because you're anticipating certain micro things that you can't anticipate, like a COVID or a specific storm, this is a reason why macro planning should go into that micro planning as well. I just thought I'd make that, please.
Nope.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I just, thank you for mentioning that. I think that you can get some good model policy for capital planning from Vermont League of Cities and Towns, Katie Buckley. I know that some of the towns in this region have adopted that, and it really is just a kind of a different way of, it's like what you're doing for your equipment, and just expanding onto that, having a policy is helpful. And also kind of the inverse of what you're saying is true, that just as you're trying to plan in such a way that you have some like resilience for when bad stuff happens, having kind of a clear list of priorities allows you to kind of really fast forward when there's a good opportunity. So I'm thinking about the climate economy money that's going to be flowing through the state this year, and I think they're going to put a lot of money into energy efficiency for town buildings. So you really might have a pretty straightforward path to doing some of those upgrades, and already having identified your projects makes it a very easy decision for your town.
Yeah.
For
Excellent.
the record, could you please?
Oh, hi, I'm sorry, I'm Jen Stromston from BDCC, sorry.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, no, and I'm going to move on here, but even we have a specialist here on this board. Who knows when we're going to need trucks that are electric or alternative if we put a whole bunch of money into a combustion process, which may or may not come quicker or later. It's a great point. I mean, that's just something you have to think about, though, I think at some particular point, because it could come quicker and it could be very expensive, but we've allotted and then spent all this money elsewhere. Thank you for those comments. Any other comment on the capital plan? Thank you. Okay, fun time. The FY23 budget review, discussing pages 4, 5, and 5% cost of living adjustment.
So you asked.
Thank you, sir. Have a great night.
For a chart of what 5% would look like versus the 3. So I have broke out all of the categories and given you, and these are rough, very close, but apples for apples. They're within reason. So your 3% from present, your 5% from present. The difference between those two is your fourth column, and then the yearly difference from 5% from present.
Was there a total someplace?
Totals are at the bottom, so your yearly difference would be $30,745 at 5%.
Again, as we just discussed, this is a substantial differential which we can't see. There's not a crystal ball to anticipate where COLA may be next year. And I've been doing that a long time, over 30 years.
I guess I'll just reiterate my opinion, which is that we put in the budget a 5% COLA, and then at the end of June, when we vote on this and we know more exactly what the COLA is, if it happens to be less than that, we'll have asked for more in taxes than we'll basically overtax for the COLA, but we would return that money to the taxpayer the next year. That's the way I would do it, to be very clear that it's a cost of living wage increase.
When I first got on the board, what we did was, we'd always put more than we had. And when we would take from June to January, we would just say, okay, this is what it is, and then we would look at it again in January, to go from January back to July.
We did that last year too.
Yeah, so that basically we would say, okay, we're gonna use 5% until the end of the calendar year, and then we'll look at it, and if it goes, or we might be just the other way. Sometimes we might say, hey, just 3%, but then when we get to January, we realize we really was off, we'll raise it to 5%. A whole year, we're year
Yeah.
and a half out, it's hard to estimate
Yeah.
where you're gonna be.
That's what
But to be locked in where all of a sudden the whole year that everybody's come back and complaining that you didn't give them enough, at least they would know that we're addressing it every 6 months.
Yeah.
That on top of today's consumer price inflation rate announcement that hopefully everybody heard, that we blew past our 31-year high. So we bring that up, then we make this decision at least and put it on the record, so that way if this discussion does come up at town meeting, it wasn't as if we were making spurious decisions or decisions that weren't educated using the primary indices or primary, at least accepted data that's been accepted for many years. It doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. No one's claiming to be an expert, but that's the data that's available to us to utilize. So it is also a question of what is fair, but it is also a question of what is actual. So I don't know where inflation is going to be this time next year. I don't know where the CPI is. I don't know where the COLA is going to be. All I know right now, we all know everything's running hot.
Well said.
Yeah. So I guess what you didn't conclude, are you with 5%?
I'm with 5%.
I'm with 5%.
Yeah, I'm with too.
Jason?
Sounds good.
Anyone, any input, any comment from the public? Okay. Moving on.
So utilizing the 6-page document that you have in front of you, the only change on page 1 is the phone, office phone, which is on this third column down. It's $4,600. It's going to go up $200. That is an accurate rate increase according to our carrier. So that's in black now, not blue.
I have something on page 1. Are you on page
Yeah.
2? So I want to add, as I said, in some money for someone to maintain the town website. And I think I'm roughly estimating that'll be about $3,000 for the year.
Okay.
So I don't know where that would go under,
I
but
say, what line item you're gonna put it under?
computer contract services, I mean, we have an IT contract, but it would be a separate contract, obviously, but it might go under the same line item.
I'm not positive. It doesn't honestly matter, just we'll earmark it and make a note to it.
What's this one that's computer expenses and there's nothing there? Can we put it there? Which is down on page 2, this, I don't know what, it's just, there's nothing there. It just says computer expenses. Under salaries and wages. What is that there for?
I'm not seeing
it either.
Third or fourth
Says,
line. from the bottom.
wait, way down towards the bottom.
Way down.
That's a treasurer's office. That would go to the treasurer's office.
Right. You want to keep it in the executive office area.
Just to be
so-
clear, I guess.
Yeah,
so,
and you
yeah.
could, Darling, correct me if I'm wrong, we can add a line that said website maintenance or
You
something
can always
like that.
add GL
Okay.
account.
So under office supplies, we right now have the school merger expense. We could literally add another one right below it.
Yep.
Website maintenance,
Yep. That's my guess. We'll see what happens, but.
and you want to add $3,000 to it?
I think I would group, like, make an IT grouping, and group all your IT-related stuff out of office supplies, but into a IT,
So we have that
Grouping.
above it. It's
Yeah.
computer contract services, IT, Vermont
like, but
Connections.
make it a subheader in your financials anyways, so you could group,
Sure.
just grouped better.
Fine with me.
Yep, just one.
Not to backtrack, but I just want to make sure didn't we vote on the COLA adjustments in the past?
Yes.
We have. So I do apologize. So why don't we
To
back,
put it in the budget, though,
yes,
you don't need a formal vote because it is just going in there and you're gonna vote
We're gonna vote to pass the
for
whole
the whole
budget.
thing.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
But to answer your question, we got a little hard time from some of the voters, so once we put it in there, we
Yes.
felt that they deserved it, but we still, as a board, when it comes to July, we would actually vote that we're actually gonna give June, well, July 1st.
So can
Gotta
I,
be done in-
can I just put it on the record for the taxpayer, real quick? I don't mean to make time. So we established a cost of living adjustment, as we have in the past, by the United States Social Security. The cost of living adjustment for 2022 has come out at 5.9%. Coupled with that, with today's announcement from the United States Department of Labor, that CPI rose to 6.2% versus a year ago. That is the biggest gain since November 1990, or 31 year. This supplemental information is why we're making that decision today to have such a relatively large increase in the COLA adjustment. I just wanted to put that on the record. That way we had it for the meeting, should that come up. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Okay, sorry for the interruption.
no problem. Page 2, we took away the contracted services under the executive department, made it 0. And as you requested, put it under treasurer's contracted services at 13,000. So it was 10 and 3, now it's 13. Okay,
And so that covers all the work that Emma is doing for us, that figure there.
that's correct.
Yeah, okay, great, thanks.
Page 3, did we do page 3 last time? Can't remember, sorry.
We did, but
We did, okay, so the only changes that I have on this one is, I met with the planning commission, and we added $100 to the postage line, so their budget will be asked for $100 more, which would be $2,640 for the year that they're presenting the town plan, hence why we needed the postage. Page 4 is new. So Development Review Board is holding their own. We subtracted the trainings and meetings at this point with the proposal that they're all online now. So they're actually going to go down $50. Zoning administration, other than the increase in wages, it will maintain under this proposal. Municipal buildings, we did see a small increase in our weekly cleanings from our person, and mostly it is doing a more thorough job for COVID purposes to disinfect all surfaces, including doorknobs, etc. So that would be the only increase asked for in that line item. Municipal meetings, municipal buildings, excuse me. Heating oil, we're running underneath the 2,500, so we're going to maintain it. We know it has gone up substantially, but we did lock into a good price, so we're feeling pretty strong that that will still suffice. Electrical costs are fluctuating so sharply, it's really hard to catch that bouncing ball, but we're going to add $1,500 for best guess at this point, looking into the future. And we're open to suggestions because it is a bouncing ball. We really don't have a sharp clue about that.
I just had a question on heating oil.
Oh, sorry, yep.
With separating highways, you use some heating oil.
He has it on his own page.
It's his own, it's separated already?
Yeah, it
Oh,
is.
okay. That was my question.
Is there some reason we have town garage under municipal buildings? There's nothing under there, but there's a line item for it.
We had an expense years ago, and that's why it was added to there and just never removed in case there was another one. I can't remember what it was prior.
Can we just take it out?
I can remove the line.
Mhm.
I just kind of keep it in there because it doesn't hurt anything and it's just at
Okay.
0, but if you want it removed, I'll remove it.
Yes, I don't,
Would that be a place to put your capital?
under.
That's
municipal
why
buildings?
it's there, right, because
You know, for your
again,
capital improvement,
If we put money there. But,
Municipal buildings, yeah. Maybe. Municipal buildings,
so we'll leave it there for now.
okay.
All right.
But there's also this line item for building improvements, and there's nothing there either. What is that? Do you know?
Typically, it's like painting this building, which is a discussion. The last time it cost us in the range of $43,000, but they did a bunch of work on the cupola, so hopefully they won't have to do that this time. So it's just painting of the building, and it should be in the $30,000 range. Typically, when I asked the other 2 times, we just do it. We overspend that line item. We understand that it's maintenance, and without getting firm pricing, I don't have a good grasp at it. Right now, I couldn't get pricing if I had to. I've asked a couple contractors that were available just to give me a ballpark, and they weren't even interested in that right now.
Mhm. And painting of the post office, did that come up, where does that come under?
It just was done,
Yeah, and so does that,
building maintenance,
okay.
post office maintenance. That line item. Page 5.
I had a question, sorry, real quick.
John Jones.
John, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The town garage, we don't need any building, you don't need anything for maintenance of that?
in my budget,
In your budget, you're gonna carry,
I have building maintenance. I have money for the maintenance of the building in my budget.
These are for bigger line items. We like, I can't remember, Jeff, what did we do that was substantial? That we had to have money in that line?
Like BC,
John,
who knows, when
Yeah,
they built in 1987, when they built the new, added 2 bays to the garage, when they put in the new heating system.
No, we
it
put
was in
in,
near 2010 or something, and I can't.
no, we had
remember.
10,000 into where the back room fell in, remember? The back room fell in.
When Streeters
Gotcha.
rebuilt it. and-
Yeah, we had to rebuild the whole thing because it actually fell in, or water came
That could
in,
be it.
damaged.
Installation sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That could
that's
be
right.
it.
Yeah, it was well over 10,000.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's why that line was
That was
created.
probably
so
right,
that it would be,
9 years ago, 8, 9,
Yeah.
10 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ish.
but you're all set on your side, if something happens.
Yes, sir.
Maintain that
Yes, for basic
Asset
building
in
maintenance,
the town.
yes.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
I got it.
Okay, page 5. Alarm system, we just put in a new one last year, so that should be fine. Animal control officer, they have not come out with a new contract for that. So I've estimated about a 5% increase, which would be $8,000, a $600 increase.
That's on top of Wyndham County Sheriff already?
That's correct. That's a separate contract for animal control, separate person. I lowered the animal control expenses because she pretty much takes care of that now, and we did purchase a new vicious dog pole and 2 large cages for dogs that needed to be, or cats, or any animal that needs to be, any domestic animal that needs to be put into a cage. We've got those now, so I don't see the expenses being over the top, other than some gloves and possibly a Tyvek suit in some instances. Then we get down to the sheriff's department. is a very interesting conversation that I've had with the sheriff. And apparently they're not too happy about it, but it's a point of very large concern. The state has dropped some of their funding, and in your packet you have a letter. So his rates are going up, I feel, substantially, from 42 to 48.50 per hour if you keep your 2,000 hours annually. And if you don't, it's going to go to $60 from 52. So what that means is our FY23 budget, keeping the same service that we have now, would be $97,000 versus $82,000 from last year. Speaking with Chuck, speaking with Cole, myself, those people that are out on the streets a lot, we are not getting the coverage that we should. And then you look into their STARS program, which is itemized time. They owe us some significant either hours or money back. They've already given us one kickback this year, and they probably will have to do at least one more, if not two. So my suggestion is that we drop what is more realistic that they can cover, which is about 1,000 hours of coverage, making a savings of $22,000 in FY23, making it $60,000 for Windham County Sheriff. In talking with Putney, they're not going with their large price either. And that was the deal that we had. If you remember right, we got twice as much coverage because Putney's officers were working on different shifts than Westminster's, and so both towns were getting actually 80 hours of coverage within a call range, and we've never seen that. That was a fictional hope from them, and we really never saw that.
That was a sales pitch.
That was a sales pitch. So anyway, long story short, my recommendation is to follow what Putney is talking about, which I'm not putting words into their mouths, but they're also talking about lowering the amount of coverage.
Thank you for that. In matters of public safety, which is first and foremost, which is when our teams are out there saving people, fires, car rollovers, storms, whatever, Chuck. And I'm just asking this as a hypothetical, and I'd definitely like to hear from Cole. Thank you, Russ, for your input. I'm thinking, what if we went down to 30,000 or 500 hours? Would that impact public safety?
Right now, I don't see them. So you can do away with them as far as I'm concerned. It wouldn't impact anything going on with us. That's my honest opinion.
It's changed a lot. When, I was on the board and pushed hard that we have them. In the first 2 years they came, they wrote enough tickets in Westminster to pay for their total overhead. We couldn't believe it, and we're going like, okay, this was really a good deal because they were out monitoring. Because don't forget, we had them before we hired them. In other words, if there was an accident in Westminster, they're still coming. They're still taken care of. This was just to monitor and pick up speeders. That's really all it was. If they're not doing it, they're not going to totally disappear. We're still.
That's right. They're Windham County, so we are going to get covered no matter what. It's our proportionate dollar amount to help offset their costs.
If we went down, though, based on what Chuck just said, to the 500 hours, how does that impact Cole's? Is there any disparate impact to Cole's facility? Because he's out there too, also saving lives, preventing people from getting hurt more than they already have. What's their impact on that 500 hours if we were to cut down to that?
In talking with Lieutenant French, the state police barracks, they don't have the personnel that they need.
Okay.
So if we cut ours, this is my opinion only. If we cut the service down to 500 hours, we're not going to get our 2,000 hours of coverage with the two companies, state police and Windham County Sheriff. If we cut it in half, then you have a very strong possibility of covering the town to its fullest, like we have, what we're supposed to have now.
But no guarantee.
Oh, of course not. But honestly, it's, when you need them, you should have them.
Yes.
And that's what you need to actually purchase, is the insurance policy that when we need them, we will have them.
Do they respond when you call them, though?
They do respond to the town's call. We don't have a ton of them.
I guess I'm thinking
but on
like
an
Forest
accident-
Road, the people that were here before on Forest Road.
They did
Are
very
they
well with that.
responsive to that?
They
I
were
mean,
very good with that.
I don't see him around, and I'm probably around as much as anybody. Although I did see him at the end of my road tonight, but
You can ask the fire department, they don't always come when they call. Accidents and things, they don't always show up,
Yeah,
neither
yeah.
do the state police.
What are we down to on the amount of money we're getting for tickets? Is it getting less all the time?
It actually, this past year was better than it has been in the last couple.
So give us
This year that we're in now.
where does that revenue, I keep forgetting, where does that revenue show up?
It's in the, you don't have revenue sheets with you right now.
Yeah.
What's it called? Not pilot, but,
Because I'm telling you, in the past, when they were out there running around, we had as much as $40,000 come back in, so, I mean, that
you're
was
not even close to that.
not even.
Not even close.
But
You're-
as a
this
select
past
person, we
year,
should know
I think
that,
we were
but we
at
have the.
24,000, and that was a substantial year
That's still
for
a
us.
lot of money that people don't know we're actually are getting from them
No
to help
question.
offset.
To offset the.
Yeah, it is actually, and that was, the original sales pitch they had was the more hours they work, the more they could bring revenue in.
Oh, that's awesome. Anyway.
John Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You looking for the incentive, where the Rolodex, where all the money, ticket money goes into? Is that what you're looking for?
The GL account? I
No,
don't
it's just
know what it is.
the little,
Well, a couple things. I've heard a lot of the same conversations. I actually sit on the emergency committee for the county as well. I think some outreach to understand what we know, they're short-staffed, one. When we start talking, putting a devalued figure on public safety, I get a little concerned, and I understand we gotta look at numbers. But one of the things I would try to assess where all the agencies that serve us are at. Can they combine services and provide them at a rate that we can live with as taxpayers to assist our highway and our fire folks that are on the interstate or at an accident? So I would try to have those conversations. Now, one thing that came back, and I don't know this for sure, one thing that is a challenge is when we don't have policies or a town ticket book for them to ticket. And then when they try to uphold these in the court system, they get kicked out.
we have both.
So
They have them both from
I
us.
so I wanted to, this has come out, and I just wanted to share it on this topic, that if there's a way that, if that is the case, and if they have the book, do we have a copy of what our town ticket book, and what's our policy for them when they write it?
We've been through it. They actually have come to a certain time on how the sign's gonna be posted, how it is so that they can enforce it. They do come to us if they're saying, hey, we can't enforce this because of this and this. And we have in the past gone, it's okay, what do you need? I need to have that posted for
But
this.
they have a ticket book that says Westminster Town, and they're cruising, they have a policy.
Like I said, it's,
No, I'm just, that's the question.
they brought in quite a
They do.
few, yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Right, keeping more money back than
Yes,
it's
exactly.
supposed to.
Chuck.
Well, I'm just curious if we've got any thought into the future. What happens if the sheriff's department goes away?
That is a very strong possibility.
That's what I'm saying. I know other towns have actually, they've got constables in there, work for the town, and they're writing tickets, and the money comes directly back to the town. And I was just curious.
But you go look at their
Is there-
budget, I've looked at all those towns, I compared ourselves to Bridgewater, for example, same population, same area, and they have a full-time. It's scary how much money they have to put, close to $1 million in order to staff, because once you're there, you have to have a second person on the night system, you gotta have somebody, you have to have two people to go make arrests.
But we don't have that now.
No,
The sheriff's department or the state.
but
police
I'm just saying,
offer that.
and that's a very expensive service if all of a sudden, that's why if it worked, if they did the hours they said they were gonna do, it's a good service. We're not complaining about that. They just don't turn in the hours, you know?
Right, well, and what concerns me now is they have this night rider, have you seen this?
That's what I just saw tonight.
Yeah, they drive around at night with their lights on,
Well,
just,
just
they're not flashing, they're just blue, just to let you know that they're in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, me driving around the town truck with the lights flashing isn't the same as plowing the road. Just-
Right, there's no way to measure that it's an effective deterrent strategy,
Well,
for whatever it is that they're
And
doing.
we're still paying for that.
I
It's
understand.
part of these hours that we're talking about, so.
I agree, and I think we have a general consensus here, that we're leaning towards reduction. However, Sheriff Anderson is a really wonderful guy. He's come before us before, I believe. Perhaps before he make a final decision, he could, I know he's busy, we could hear from him, he
Yep.
could come in and
The
we
days
could
of,
talk to him.
I don't say, for a long time, we had such great service, because they were here almost all the time, giving us a report, telling us what was going on, because they are our eyes in town, they're driving around the whole town, and it really is nice, and once in a while, to have them come in and kind of make a report to us what they're
Yeah.
seeing.
I think the whole labor situation is different though, and,
Unfortunate.
It is,
That's the
and it is, there's a lot more thefts going on than were there. I mean, people stealing catalytic converters off vehicles, there's just a lot of stuff going on that we do need them to be monitoring and be in certain places at a time, so, which we can't ask the state police to do, you know?
yeah.
I see a lot of traffic.
I'm sorry, Darlene, I missed that, what'd you
I
say?
said they need to be up at the high school in the parking lot.
They need to be everywhere. They need to be down at the underpass. They need to be up at the exit. They need to be.
They were on the bridge when I came.
Uh-huh,
So why don't we give
But-
Sheriff Anderson a fair assessment, and
yeah.
he's always a great guy to come in and talk to us.
So,
How
but
about
we're,
that?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, please.
But we're really paying them for the animal control on top of that. And where am I wrong?
No, that's correct.
It's on
Yeah.
top of.
That was a separate contract.
And that,
which we
is
were
that
paying
adequate
somebody else.
for animal control?
Yes, and that's been working extremely well.
I'm gonna say, don't do it
Extremely
that. We've had two town managers that, when they left, said, you gotta do something about animal control. It's like what
No,
they
I'm just
kept.
looking as a total, we're paying them a total amount.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So this has
Oh, yeah.
been the best system so far, where they actually, somebody went and got the dog and actually took it to Brattleboro.
So let's say we had that $90,000. Could you, like, as Chuck said, could you hire a guy, your own guy,
No.
for that kind of money with a car that would assist him with traffic control, could do the dog, the animal complaint? I don't know. I have no idea what all that stuff costs, but
About in 2014 or 15, you folks asked me to do that.
Oh, okay.
And where it got really sticky was the insurance.
Yeah.
The insurance on the constable, and it was only just one, because he's got to be trained
yeah.
to do all of it. He can't be trained just to carry a nightstick.
Right,
right. And as soon as you start talking a car, you're starting to talk,
I'm just thinking out loud.
it is, and it sounds like, that's plenty of money, but really, when you get down to the brass tacks, it's
It
really,
was,
really.
every town that I looked at that had it was just,
But how would like Elsted get away with it? Langdon, they all have.
go look at their budget. Go look at.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just saying,
I
they
don't
got,
know.
Yeah.
John Jones.
Mr. Chair, thank you. To Mr. Perry's point, and this may be something I'll look into. I know in Bell Falls, they have that traffic control company,
Green
Green
Mountain.
Mountain
Yeah.
Traffic. And I don't know if there's a partnership to be had there, where if the highway goes out, that they can roll out two of their traffic. They did it up by my place. Power company came out, next thing you know, they're out there setting up cone packages.
Yeah, they're freelancer, they're for hire, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
but I
the
just
power
don't-
company has two guys with them every day.
But I'm just
5
saying, I
days a week.
didn't know if that was an option to.
Well, you mentioned Bells Falls, though. What?
We have contacted them before to hire them to come in here.
That's what I was
It
wondering.
was, like I said, their budget is well over $1 million. It's just, it really just, for some reason, I never could get over how expensive it was. I think it's like you said, the liability insurance and a building and.
Yeah, I didn't give that.
So, yeah.
Vehicle.
The object really, us sharing with Putney, that's what really started out, because we'd end up, because that was the same thing. When there was a arrest or something, the person in Putney would come up and they would work together to go in and work together and cover for each other. And it really is, when they work, it's a good system. It really is. And very little money compared to what it was costing us to have a full-time person here. Let's get them in here and let's discuss it with them.
Chuck, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you for that discussion and everyone's input. Moving on. Page 5 still.
Okay, the ambulance service is in a 3-year contract. This is the second year. Transfer of the retreatment, we went up last year. Thoughts about that? Retreatment is your pavement, and it's not getting any cheaper, that's for sure. We're doing less and less mileage every year, trying to keep track of our 50 miles of tar road. It's getting to be difficult.
Then maybe that should be one that we actually sit down and come up with a capital plan of like, okay, if we keep going and then we can look, the board can look at dollars, but Chuck and all need to look at what area. So this is, we're gonna do a mile here, we're gonna do a mile and a half here, that we would actually have in the next 5 years, knowing that this is what roads are gonna be paved. So
What
that
we've
we-
been doing is
Yeah.
just doing as much as we
We
have for
can,
money.
but then it goes back to your question, are we keeping up?
We're not,
So,
and we haven't.
then that's why we would need that plan to come back to find out. If we stay on a 5-year capital plan, we might be a little short one year, and we know we gotta make up for it the next year in order to get back to where we should be.
So just to put it in perspective, right now, you're putting away enough money without grant money, if we don't get any grants, to pave a mile of road a year. You have 20 miles of road. So what you're asking this blacktop to do is last for 20 years. Doesn't happen.
Right.
That doesn't even happen in Florida, let alone Vermont.
And what does retreatment cover, that money, the 135,000? Labor, materials, labor and materials?
When Chuck patches, he takes it
Right,
out of
it comes
there.
out of there, yeah. When we
So-
fill potholes or when,
Uh-huh,
our labor doesn't come out of
No.
there, but
Oh,
it's
no,
the
materials.
material would come out of there. But when we hire so-and-so to go pave,
Pike
right.
last year.
that comes out of it. Then that's their labor, their equipment, the material.
So hired
Good job.
labor and materials
Yep.
is in that, okay.
And forgive me for my ignorance, but most of that is petroleum-based product, correct?
Yes, sir.
So given the price that we've got hit with this
Not
year,
getting cheaper.
right, we can expect price inflation on the cost. Substantial, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other thing too is, Chuck, too, we're doing a much more thorough job. In other words, we never used to grind it up. We used to just lay and paint.
Shim
Shim it
shim
and
it
pave
down.
it. And now we're actually, the
Well,
last couple of times we did it, it was a major, I mean, you're
Well,
grinding
the-
all up,
the
leveling
biggest
out.
reason is because the longevity that you're asking out of this blacktop, if we don't do it correctly, you're not gonna come anywhere.
So that's why we
near.
hired you, to make it last 20 years. That's what
Well,
you keep
I'm
telling
trying.
us, okay?
Heat tape.
There you go.
Costs are going up.
Yeah.
So the end of the page, what was your thought on that? Leave it alone?
We really need to add more to it. But how much? I mean, I
Exactly.
don't know.
Like we said, we went up 10 last year.
Which 10 grand in that doesn't,
No, but it's
it's something, but
better
it's
than a
not
poke.
much.
Yeah.
I hate to be put on record, but when I first got on, what we ended up doing is in June, we would look at it and we had money that we thought we were gonna carry, we would say, if we were short because we had a rough winter, it was always by like how bad the winter was. And if all of a sudden we had a light winter, we would say, let's take some of that money that we had over here and do another quarter of a mile of pavement. If we had a rough winter, we would say, we might have to cut it back to 3/4 of a mile, you know what I mean? But we would just always address that issue in June. on it.
You never get ahead doing that.
No,
Or caught up, let alone ahead.
right. And just something to think about, back Westminster Road, by the end of next summer, it's gonna be hammered. It's already in bad shape.
What is the bridge you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that truck traffic going across that road, it's gonna be hammered.
What was the total cost in Westminster West this year?
That's what we're across, three.
263,
260.
I think so. Something like that.
Well, no, like, Craig said, that was a pretty big project.
Oh, yeah, I'm just
But you
thinking distance and what we got done
Sure.
and,
That road was in
If you were gonna
horrible shape.
overlay,
That was awful.
if you're just gonna do a mill and fill, you do twice that much,
I would
distance
cover
wise, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thoughts? Maintain.
for now.
I think we maintain it for
Maintain,
now,
okay.
but we should look at it.
I think every year we should, as we come back to do the final budget, that's the one item we go back and look at it one more time.
Look at it, okay?
Yeah.
So the wages was on the 3%. Chuck and I went through his budget and maintained for the first 4 items, went down to the last one, culverts. We know that culvert prices went absolutely silly this past 3 or 4 months because of the flood. He was buying one in particular size culvert, 18-inch, at $8.95. The last time he purchased was at $24.48 or something like that.
These are steel, right?
Plastic.
No
That was
plastic.
plastic. That was plastic.
Also
And
petroleum,
availability.
I got it.
So just
Steel
so you
probably
know,
would have been much better.
we did go up 5,000 on that. Flipping the page is why I put page 6 there too, is to keep going through his. We went up $500 on the guardrails. Maintained on signs, chloride, state road permit, small tools, contracted services, telephone and internet, he seems to be right at the brink, but he's maintaining. Electricity, during the summer, it's really low, and in the winter, it's extremely high. His fluctuates anywhere from $400 to $500 from winter months to summer months. And then miscellaneous training has stayed the same.
So I have a question. So last year, the increase in contracted services, what was that for? 44,000.
It was a grant. It was covered by a grant.
And what did it pay for?
I think.
Do you know,
Did we
Chuck,
do it?
something in-
Not live, not
There's stuff in
this year
Gageville.
we're in, but the last one.
Yeah,
It was-
FY21.
There've been the stuff you did in Gageville,
No.
wasn't?
No, we were after that.
Hartley Hill.
Forest, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's what it was for, it was Forest
Forest
Road,
Road.
it was all the catch basins that,
Isn't that
Yeah.
Gageville?
well, yeah, Forest
I mean,
Road,
now-
it is, but we don't.
Last I knew, that road was in Gageville, okay?
So Forest Road.
So
a
why are you
grant
looking at
for
me
Forest-
like I don't know what
Well,
I'm
it's
talking
North
about?
Westminster, it's on the outskirts of Gage.
Yes, it's Forest Road.
So what Darlene
That's
is
why.
talking about, if we had a separate item that said grants, that would not show up, it would show up under the grants.
That's correct. That's why, I'm not answering for it, but that was what I originally asked for, was this line
And
item.
what Rockingham does, it would say Forest Road grant, or
Yeah.
Better
Yeah,
Roads
to be
grant.
contracted services, it means you're hiring somebody to do something, and that's not what you're doing, right? You're using it as a grant match.
Well, we hired, Adams Trucking did the
Okay.
work,
Yeah,
so it was contracted out, but it's just vague.
yeah,
And we shouldn't have to sit here and scratch our head and go, what was that about?
right,
Especially on a grant, because you're supposed to be documenting
Yeah.
that really,
Yeah.
really well. So you should be able to pull up a photo and say, yeah, even down to the stone, so.
So I think
Thank you.
chloride should be something we should look at too.
So we discussed that, Russ and I did a little bit, and so the summer before last, yeah, I could have used double that chloride. This last year, I didn't need any. So I mean. it's
Dry to
hard
wet.
No, I understand, but
Yeah, so
you
that's,
can still have it and not need it one year and need it the next.
sure,
So you're not playing that up and down, at least it's,
But looking across the column, you could see that it most of the
Yeah.
time, it's very,
I field complaints, not a ton, but people like, Morse Brook, the big roads where cars are really cranking
oh,
on,
they get dusty.
which they're too fast really to begin with, but I feel like having the extra to be able to use it on those roads would be advantageous.
West Road,
Yeah, mine doesn't need any, I don't mean,
Pine
I
Banks
mean,
Road.
No, of course.
you know, if I
That's
lived
where we
real
use the
close to that
majority of
road,
the
I'd be,
chloride. It's the same material that we use to pre-wet our salt.
I'm gonna say, there's a lot of towns gone to making it themselves.
Now they make brine,
Yeah.
which is, we looked into that.
Well, I'm not saying it's.
No, I was just looking, I was just saying, I looked into it. So we pre-wet our salt at the spinner, but since I took over, we have calibrated the trucks. So we know just what we're putting out. We're using a lot less than we used to, salt and chloride, to do the same job, so.
So we feel like we have it covered because we haven't been spending that complete amount. And he got new tanks, and like you said, he's regulating it better, so I think we should see if that is
if
a
you're,
correct
I mean,
amount.
if you feel you're happy with it,
Well,
So
right
be
now,
it.
what I felt was it's gonna, since we calibrated everything and we're doing things a little bit different, I was just gonna see where we were next year, see how we made through the winter and this, a normal summer, see how it played out, before I asked for more than I needed. That's all. That's why we're where we're at. But you're probably right. At the end, I probably need more. I'm hoping for the best.
We might as well continue that page, get it
Please.
flipped. Okay, so equipment, building maintenance, we're back to that, that's the town garage fund, $12,000 for his building maintenance, his,
Is that what you transfer to the reserve, or you spend it out of the budget? So that's not a reserve transfer, right? So you're spending that, so you're not saving that for the town garage.
that's
I've
correct.
got 5 buildings I take care of out of that.
Yeah, I'm saying, why don't you have any reserve money requested for future repairs? That's what I'm wondering. Why aren't we planning down the road?
Well, we do. We
Start
have a-
saving?
We have $63,500 in an account for building maintenance that were capital expenses coming up.
Right, but that's gonna maybe replace 5 windows, what is the long-term plan and what are you saving towards for that? That's where my thoughts are, like, do you put $5,000 in your budget every year to put to the reserves to build that, so that when a major thing happens, or you have a major repair, it's not coming into one budget all at once?
Yes,
That's
I'm
what
sure we'll be putting money. Did we put money in the garage fund last year?
No.
I went into the bridge fund instead.
That's correct.
So we got a lot of reserve funds to put it into, but I'm sure we'll be putting money in the garage fund this year for the fuel tanks. Because it'll be costing more.
Yes.
So radio repair and replace, we added $200. It seems to be maintaining itself pretty well. Equipment heat, $2,000 seemed to be adequate, so that whole line item went up $200. Gas, fuel, and oil, we are flipping a coin. Our 75,000 has been shown to be okay. And that's with fueling up everything before the end of the year ends. But the trucks, the equipment are all coming fuel efficient compared to what we used to be running. So we're seeing that number maintaining. Well, don't only put words in your mouth, but we figured that 75,000 was adequate again this year.
Another one.
You still think so?
Even with the increase, possibly.
Let me ask you right now, when you're out there, compared to last year, everyone here, you don't have to be doing what you're doing, can feel the pinch. You feeling it? You see a huge difference?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So is 75 gonna be enough if we don't get an alleviation of,
Well, the big thing is
What price?
where he's getting the gravel from, and he starts sending the 3 big trucks out to start hauling it, and he hauled it from Alstead or something, and if all of a sudden he has to go to Brattleboro to another location, you're gonna see the fuel go up.
Yeah.
Just, it
We're
really,
gonna see that in our lifetime.
I'm lucky that I hauled all our sand in
Yeah.
This spring, before all this, I hauled the sheds full of salt since April.
Yeah.
Out of last year's budget. And yeah, we're lucky that we do have our aggregates right close by. So, yeah.
Right.
So you're proud? I don't know.
Just asking for your,
No, I know, everything's going up. So like you said, I don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, in a perfect world, things are gonna be grand.
okay. Thank you.
And
And that's gonna
repairs-
hit repairs and parts as well.
Repairs and parts are, with keeping our fleet updated as we're doing, that's pretty much maintained.
Okay.
And the good thing about that is a lot of the parts we're having trouble getting anyway, so.
Yeah, kidding.
Saving money.
Well, going forward though, equipment, if we're gonna keep big equipment, that 15-year term or whatever, that repairs is gonna have to go up because
Oh, yeah.
emission's only good for 5.
But
That's
Well, we're
huge,
starting to see
huge
tires.
money after
Tires are
that.
starting
Tires
to
you
go
can't
up.
even get right now, so
And the price is
if
up.
you're gonna keep it, it's gonna have to
Sure.
But on the trucks, he's
go with it.
getting a 7-year warranty, which we never had, so
Right.
he shouldn't have major expenses.
Well, I'm not talking about trucks, I'm talking about long-term.
Road graders and stuff like
So
that.
like, take the excavator for instance, the main boom pin needs to be replaced and the circle bearing is worn. And it gets greased, because we're asking too much out of the whole machine, but anyway, we talked.
Have we ever come in recently,
$6 grand just for that.
recently over budget? Not that I can remember, I don't think, on fuel and repairs.
We did one of my first 2 years,
Not since I've been.
when fuel was
Wow. Oh, yeah.
substantial, and we were,
Do you remember, have any idea, was it a large number or?
It all depends, because there was a couple of years where didn't get filled up at the end, it got filled up into the next year.
Right.
So then it got filled up
Okay.
at the end.
well,
And then,
what happened was that it was a 2-year flux,
Yeah.
and we filled it and kept within budget that
Yeah.
year, but it hurt us the next year, because we
Yeah.
weren't able to fill everything.
yeah.
So hence, we went over, and how much did we go over, I can't tell you.
Okay.
If we're actually filling it up at the beginning of the year and then filling up at the next beginning of the year, we're pretty
You're doing,
consistent.
you're doing
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
So what you probably see it, because you're looking out the window, but you see that trailer getting utilized. When the backhoe has to go to Westminster West, somebody doesn't drive it, they put it on a trailer, and one guy takes a truck with the backhoe, not
Yeah.
2 guys chasing each other down the road. So that saves. When you're done with the grader in Westminster West, you know you gotta be there again tomorrow, you don't drive it all the way back to the shop, it stays beside the road where you're done with it, and pick up where you left off. Same with the roller. So that saves a lot. It doesn't sound like much, but you're talking 6 gallons of fuel a day being wasted.
Wear and tear along, tired.
Yeah, so I'm just saying.
But the other hand, when she started asking about
difference.
capital, it was like, when this act, was it 64 came out and says now, and then we had to scramble to go run a backhoe, to buy an excavator and all that. Who knows with electric, what's coming down that we
Yep.
don't, all of a sudden we
Yep.
have to spend something, and you're gonna question, like, why didn't we put money aside for capital? We didn't put money aside for an excavator because we didn't know that rule was coming out at the time, and that we were gonna have to have it, you know?
Okay, any more comments on the budget? Thank you, everyone, for your input. Any more comments? Okay, let's move on to new business. Start off with the transportation grant and John Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice work. What you have in front of you is a follow-up to the last meeting for a transportation alternatives grant. What we're looking at doing is going for the scoping part of this year, because we don't have the time to put together a project engineering. And I have Colin with me from Wyndham Regional. He works full-time with transportation. And what I need you folks to do is to approve us applying for this scoping grant. And the numbers are, we're looking at a budget number about $15,000, and then there's a cost match probably about $3,000 for us, but that's down the road once we get the money. And this is for Piggery Road. just to be clear. And why this is beneficial for that road is there are a lot of inputs there. You have watersheds, you have freshwater fishery, you have potable water supplies. So to have this work done, folks come in and tell us what we need to do, then we put the project on the list, and then we can probably apply to V-Trans or others for the money. So I will just turn it over briefly to Colin to give you a brief description of how this program works, if that's okay.
Colin Bratton,
Yeah, Colin, I'm the transportation partner for the Wyndham Regional Commission, as you said.
good voice.
Yeah, appreciate that.
I like it.
So,
A little biased, ain't you?
I mean, basically, this is in the transportation alternatives program, there's a whole bunch of different stuff. It's kind of like a catch-all for a bunch of different V-Trans initiatives, but part of that is focused on water quality, and that is essentially, you know, in layman's terms, is upsizing culverts. So you have an undersized culvert, it's not functioning as it should, it's prone to, you know, to filling up, it's prone to the road getting flooded, and so there is funding available to upsize these culverts, to put in box culverts, to put in bridges, and that, you know, both improves, you know, water filtration and, you know, flood management. Also does, like, you know, as he said, fisheries and you know, the aquatic wildlife patches, as they call it. And so, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different programs that there's funding available for that type of stuff, and to apply for this, to get it scoped. Once you have the scoping study done, you have a project that's shovel ready that you can then take that scoping study and apply to a whole bunch of different programs that could potentially fund that work. You know, there's 4 or 5 different grants just from V-Trans that can fund that type of stuff, and then, you know, there's the Department of Environmental Conservation block grant. But to have the scoping study done and the engineering report done put you in a much better position to then decide, you know, where are we going to apply to get this funding, and just put you in a better position to actually be competitive in the grant process. And it's really, I mean, it's something that we recommend to all the towns, is that if you're going to apply for a grant, to have the scoping done beforehand is a huge benefit. And so that's, you know, what we're talking about here and why we're here.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. Yeah, and to caveat that, so the process here is for you folks to hopefully approve this. We have to apply for it through the town, so that can either be with Russ, the full-time administrator, maybe even Chuck, if you and I can sit down with him, we can apply online. I have all the information we need to put in there, where it fits in the back questions, so we can do that. I think the time burden on this is like 45 minutes for us to do it. The reason why we have to vote on it now, because we're not going to have another select board meeting before it sunsets. And so I just need you folks to, that's where we need to go. And this is a great opportunity to start looking at this moving forward, as Colin has said, because with these, we can leverage so many different funding mechanisms to help offset our budget here. We're such a small town. And so I just hope we focus.
You mentioned Piggery,
Piggery, that's the.
and I appreciate the education I got on that, because that was astounding. So, again, to educate me briefly, or us, all of us together, so this, if you're focusing on Piggery, what is the ultimate objective of this particular grant proposal?
To get us the funding to satisfy the scoping and engineering that we would have to pay for stakeholders. So they would actually pay for the service and work to be done. All the agencies we brought in to help guide us and tell us this is what we can do. So if we wanted to put a box culvert there or a bridge, we would know what the box culvert is going to cost us, how we're mitigating that watershed that has 9 tributaries to it. And then if we're doing a bridge, we'll know that cost, and we can say, well, bridges, as we know, I don't know what the follow-on cost would be. So,
Okay.
So this helps us satisfy step 1, and it puts us in a better position. So when V-Trans looks at this and they create it, Westminster's got this one in, they did their scope, and Townsend didn't do it, they didn't do it. Westminster's getting the money for the project. And that's what it does for us. It really puts us at the front of the line. So.
Town manager.
We, this is a great idea for the engineering part of it, and it will determine what is best for the town, whether it's a bridge or a box. We are in line for, and Chuck and I both received an email 2 days ago from that company. It's USDA, but what's the division? Remember that gentleman that we met with? Anyway, we're in line for a very substantial grant to do the actual work, not the scoping. So this is not a wasted step. So
So you're in support of this?
I am in support of this.
Okay,
What is ROW, is that right away?
yeah, so
So in this, there's a conversation that we're missing here.
the right of way, yeah,
Well,
so,
because it says to your question, and I'm just like, I can't find out what it is because you didn't state what it was.
so part of the application, when you do any work, you have to ensure that in your packets, you have right of way access to do the work. And when you're looking at not just taking the culvert out, we want maybe put a box culvert, bigger footprint, or maybe a bridge. The question came up, do we have to ensure that our right of ways are in compliance? We have the right of way to do the work, and that'll come after. They'll identify that as part of it, saying, yes, you guys can do it, you're perfectly fine. So that's not a now step, that's an after, but that was a question. It's a question in the grants, and it's in how grants flow. It's just a question, make sure towns have the right of way. There's like a little manual. I actually have a copy of the leaf
That's
for you
fine.
folks, but yeah.
What if we don't get the grant?
Well, if we don't get it, then we're back to square one, but.
It's back to where we are tonight.
Back to where you are, essentially, but if you don't get it, you can use that as a talking point that we didn't get it. And
Okay.
we build on that to leverage other funding, so, yes, sir. Yeah.
You're good with this too, right?
I just had one thing.
Yeah.
The USDA grant, I met with them, so I was just curious about that. Is it for Piggery Road, or is it
Yes.
just a?
We showed him 3 or 4.
So it wasn't for the culvert though, it's for the bank wash on the edge of Piggery Road.
Oh, it wasn't for the
It's
bridge.
not for the culvert or a bridge, it's for that
The slough
erosion,
of the
where
bank.
the edge of the road's actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so what'll happen with this, I want to feed into that, is that's what they'll do. They'll invite these other folks out. I met with USDA, they had somebody at a meeting at the fire station. They'll come right out and say, yep, we'll supply you with this economics for this part. They'll say, we'll do this, and.
Now, this was
so
what
it's
this
a
gentleman did with
yeah.
us, and
Yeah, so that's
but I
great.
had forgotten
Yeah.
it wasn't the actual
Okay.
bridge. It was just the sloughing of the
For-
side of the road.
For me and the rest of the taxpayers and everyone, what is our ultimate, best case scenario recovery for not just that, but also actually the real issue, which is getting that bridge or how you want it done? What is our chances of getting 80% to 100% of the money funded?
Oh, I would say pretty good.
All of it?
I would say it's pretty strong for, the scoping, like I said, the scoping study is gonna tell everybody, it's gonna look at and review any grants. Yep, they did it. If we,
Okay.
like me, I'm not an engineer, I'm a PC, so I go and say, yeah, I wanna do this, they're gonna, hey, we got this bridge guy saying you should do this. They're gonna say, that's why I stick to my specialty, let these folks tell us.
Okay.
Yep.
So we've had other folks say that this culvert needs to be replaced. The only reason we filled it back in, because we were told that there is no way FEMA, or you were there, is gonna fund us to replace it now. But
Which just doesn't make any logical sense to me.
I agree. So we filled it in, but we were also told at that time that it was a great candidate for a grant. So this is why we're here now.
Great job, everyone. So, any other question?
You need a motion to,
Yeah,
the
so
wording of the motion
I just
to,
need a motion from the board to allow us to apply for the scoping study portion of this grant, and 45 minutes, and we can work with Chuck if you guys say it's okay for him to apply for it. This has to come from the town.
Is there a name
Yeah,
for this?
exactly.
Are we including both your names on this motion?
Sure, yeah, I don't have to, but.
We don't have to, but that's
As
fine.
long as it comes from the town is the important piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the key.
yeah. So I
Is there a
move that
name
we-
for the grant?
It's Transportation Alternatives Program.
Okay.
And you're just approving to go for the scoping right now, not the actual design
Yeah,
construction.
so I move we apply for the, for a transportation alternatives grant for a scoping study for Piggery Road.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made. You want to add who we're empowering to lead that?
So it'll be I will work with, who do you want to go on and do the data entry? I'm not trying to put Chuck out there, maybe.
Yeah, I can do it.
Kelly can
Yeah,
do it.
do we need it in
Okay.
the motion, or?
No.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure. Okay, motion has been presented and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay,
Very good, thank you.
on your way, you got it. Thank you.
Thank you, thanks for coming.
Oh, we got one more, right?
Yeah, thank you very much, Colin.
Yeah,
I'll take off and then get a ride home. Appreciate you coming
Back
out.
to Brattleboro.
Well,
Yes.
thanks, Colin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
He could do sports games. He's got a great voice. ACCG, opportunity with town comparisons.
Yes, Mr. Hughes, thank you, John Jones.
John Jones, sorry, sir.
So following up again on an email that circulated down to the town, just asking about if we had a committee established. I did the research on request of the select board. I have representatives here from GDCC, and I think we have somebody attending via Zoom.
I think Sarah's on there.
Sarah's on there.
I'm on here. Hi.
All right.
So per the request of the board, I did bring back, I do have a couple. We have Dover, Vermont has a committee. And we have a one page in your packet. And at this point, I think I'm going to just yield my time to our guest to speak.
Yeah, I'm gonna, Sarah, because
Sarah.
Sarah did most of the talking with the other committees, so.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Sarah,
Hi, Sarah.
Sorry.
that's okay. Sarah, your full name?
Sarah Lang, and I'm with BDCC. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, everyone can hear you fine. Go.
Wonderful. So John reached out to me and just asked what I knew about other towns that had an economic development committee, and if I could put some bullet points together on, what the benefit of having one is, what kind of topics a committee might take on, what the role they might play. And you can see that all in that document that John provided to you. I reached out to Dover. They have a full-time staff person who does economic development, who we work really closely with, and just asked sort of for his experience. If you look at the bottom of that page, there's sort of the case study portion. Basically, what I took away from what Eric said is that it started with a committee, and without the committee, there would not be this full-time position. Actually, it's 2 full-time staff now that do economic development in the town. So he really credited the committee for helping the town to get to the position or the decision of having full-time staff doing this work. Some of the stuff that he talked about as far as the benefits of having a local economic development committee is just that, it's vital to the growth and transformation of economic development in the community. It provides sort of a direct and concentrated effort around this topic. It can provide support to town staff on these economic development topics, and also can serve as a good liaison between regional and state resources and, town staff, local businesses, and residents. I also list a handful of items, what types of topics the committee might take on. Most of these is what Eric had talked about, like the work that he does. And then we added a few. So obviously business support and recruitment, outdoor recreation planning, implementation, advertising, marketing. It goes on and on and on. And the people on the committee, the role that they might play is around grant writing and procurement, budget priorities, and local investment in economic development, implementing local initiatives, and again, liaisons between local businesses and, someone like us who does the regional economic development, providing local businesses with information on the resources, funding grants, technical assistance programs, addressing residents' concerns about these topics that fall under economic development. Next, I just list the role that we play in local and regional economic development, which I feel you guys know pretty well by now, but you can see the list of them there. And then sort of the next bullet point on the top of the next page is how our organization can support and empower a local committee. We're able to share up-to-date information on our programs and services, We can provide economic data and research, direct connection to regional and state resources and experts. We can attend the meetings to provide information or input when requested, technical assistance on grant writing and management, trainings and peer learning for community leaders. Some things to consider. Will the committee have a budget or funds? So Dover, actually, one of the reasons they created a local economic development committee is because they decided to have the 1% funds. Also, how will the topics that the committee focus on be chosen? And having a real clear outline and understanding of the decision-making process, and that for the committee, and that will limit sort of wasted time and, you know, keep projects from going or being incomplete. And I will say too, I did reach out to Jenna at Vermont Council on Rural Development just to pick her brain. She gave me another, I think, 8 towns that have local committees. And I shared those with John, and I can share them with the select board as well. And there's also VCRD has a community leadership guide, and in that guide there is a whole chapter on an economic development committee. So it's definitely a good resource to check out.
Thank you, Sarah. As always, additional comments?
No, that's great. I'll just wait to, answer if there are any questions, but I feel like you guys have a local agenda you should.
Yeah, so purpose here was to bring back to the select board the questions that were asked and explore the opportunity for Westminster to have this committee. And after consulting with strategic partners, I feel it's very beneficial for Westminster to establish this committee. I feel it can help bridge a lot of gaps where services are falling short, and our full-time staff can't handle like grants. I think that's why I helped on this last one, because I know these folks are busy with other things. So it's totally up to the select board to make that motion to establish that. And so if you have any questions.
Questions?
One thing, Mr. Chair, I did send over, but I didn't see it. You asked me for a structure breakdown, and I said it would look like a 5-member board in the email. I thought having a couple members from other boards established in the town with 3 other stakeholders in the community, residents, anybody else. So the boards will overlap for feedback loops, and then they would feedback to that. So that's a structure. I think 5 would do really well, and that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, if I may just build
Yes,
on that,
yes.
we work with a number of communities that have either downtown organizations or economic development committees, and one of the things that I think that's a really great way to structure it, because I end up having overlapping conversations. Like with Brattleboro, I end up having similar conversations with planning board folks and folks who are sort of involved in economic development things. And I think that having that kind of ability to talk across, because you will decide over time to focus on things that are probably pretty far ranging. Might be like looking at your tax base at one point, looking at grants, looking at marketing, and having representatives who touch different things so you don't have to constantly be reporting to different committees be really helpful. Because there's no clear silo. Economic development kind of go all over the place. So.
Any questions? Any other questions?
We have had such a hard time coming up with committee people on a committee now, and it seems like it's an overlap. I mean, there's development review board, there's the one trying to push to get permits. We have the planning. We just have ever since I've been here, we've never had a full group of people on any of the committees, and some of them we still have the committees, but they're not even alive anymore.
This might be a good transition. We have our committee set up.
We're not a real strong, you compare Rockingham and Bellows Falls, for example. Bellows Falls is, a village within Rockingham, but Bellows Falls is totally different. There's a lot of businesses there in that small little community. We're such a rural area. The only place we have is just this from BDR down to here, and that's it. And the rest, we've always been a sleepy town, where people that are employed are basically, if they have a business, they're working out of their house with 1 or 2 people. We don't have a boom, and never will be. It's in a community that basically we either farm a little bit or the rest of the people work someplace else, And there's never been a town that we ever pushed hard. We don't have sewer and water, so we can't really expand anymore the way, we're too close to the Connecticut River, so you really can't put anything in for a building. All the buildings that we have now are up and running. There is no empty buildings, which is pretty nice. All the businesses, we're in the transportation business. Everybody is so busy in transportation business, they really just need some more help. That's all they need. But for them to expand, I haven't talked to one business that's going to say, I want to expand, put a building up and hire more people. We're not in that, we just don't have the infrastructure in our town. So that would be my only concern is, it's more of finding people who live at home that want to find a job someplace to help them get a job so that they can still come home and live in this town and have a nice home in this town, you know? But that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else? I just had a question on the committee would require a budget of funds.
Some do operate with funds, and it doesn't have to actually start out that way.
Right. That's just one example. The reason Dover created an economic development committee is because they started having these funds and they wanted sort of a specific group of people to help decide what to do with those 1% funds. It's not necessary. The committee doesn't need money, but that is just a consideration. And potentially, you know, if you do decide to create a committee, maybe that's something down the line that's considered. I wouldn't necessarily say you have to set aside money right away or at all, but it's a potential body that could help, you know, put those funds to use.
This is Kevin Hughes. I have another question, Sarah, since you're here. Really appreciate all you do.
Yeah, of course.
For example, we were over in the ARPA committee. And so all this money is out there, and everyone seems that a lot more money is coming. You know, like a California older. The issue, though, we all have is we're scratching our head and saying, with all the exceptions and the rules, we're not really sure what we can spend money on. Sure. And there really isn't a bona fide expert, I mean, you know, that can really say, oh, yeah, you can spend the money on this and be very confident that you're going to get that money out of the ARPA. You're going to get a yes on the ARPA. Question is to you, for this type of committee, is it going to get us more money for those type of projects that is out there for things that we could use, such as infrastructure?
Yeah, I think the group could be one of the roles the committee could play is helping to find funds that kind of fill the holes, if you will, where ARPA does not cover. I think I was at the ARPA committee as well, meeting as well, and I think I had mentioned, I believe Jim was questioning, like, where do we start? You know, how do we start making a list of projects, you know, with all of the different things you can and cannot spend money on with ARPA? And what I had suggested is, you know, just making a list, period, of priority projects that the town wants to see or community members want to see, and then working through that list to see where ARPA can fit and where it might not fit. And then at least you have a list of the projects that you're interested in doing that are priorities for your community. And then you can start sort of picking away and researching, you know, where can we get funds to do X? Where can we get funds to do Y? And it's just a good place to start. But I think having this committee that's focused on economic development could be really helpful. You know, if you have this list of 5 projects and ARPA only can cover 3, you can say, okay, well, we still want those 2 projects. So maybe we can task this committee with figuring out how can we get these paid for? How can we start chipping away at what these projects would cost? And it would be a good sort of assignment, I guess, for a committee like this.
And then I'm gonna close and really appreciate your comments. Yeah. Thanks to Russell, Jason, and Chuck. I got an education after the storm as a taxpayer to see, you know, when a storm like that comes in, it exposes not only our old infrastructure that should have been replaced a long time ago, you know, it shows us where we've, you know, scotch taped things together and we're holding on by a thread. And so we do need money, and I appreciate everything Craig said, because it's absolutely true, but it's something where, you know, staring us right in the face, which is infrastructure. You know, this committee, if this committee can help us get more money for that stuff, which we all as taxpayers can look at and say, yeah, we need that. That's what I'm trying to get at. That certainly is worthwhile to create it, if it can certainly help on that, for me.
Sure. Yeah, and I think too, you know, businesses and employers are a part of economic development, but it's not everything. There are other pieces, parts that Westminster does have that an economic development committee could focus on. Infrastructure is really important to economic development.
Thank you.
Because my only comment is, I can just see a committee like this, like floundering around for months, meetings, trying to decide what to do. And I like committees that are much more focused. For instance, we had a senior living committee that sort of got deep six by COVID. But something like that, to me, would be much more useful, and that would have taken years, or will take years if it ever gets back on its feet again. It's just.
I totally agree with you. Can this committee also, if we rolled that into this committee, senior housing?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I just wanted to say is I think that especially for Westminster, it's such a good idea to think of this as like a economic and community development committee, because it's sort of, we blur together. You know, there are things where they're like, we're talking about a bigger infrastructure study for the region to understand the towns that do have water infrastructure, what they need next. And that will be a collaboration among our organization and the Regional Planning Commission and probably the Bennington County as well. And so it's kind of almost impossible to pick those things apart. I think a committee that can talk about, like, you know, senior living would be the greatest conversation to move forward in this community.
We've had those conversations.
Right, and I think, and it would also address some of your housing stuff. You know, you probably have people who are trying to stay here and are working people who would benefit from housing being released by folks being able to go into something that's more appropriate to elder residents, right? So all these things tie together. I think having a committee that can really be project focused, and those can be economic through community development projects. And then you can have one place where you can bring, like us and the Regional Planning Commission, and bring state resources in, and then they can push information back out to you guys. Be very efficient.
And just so everyone knows, this won't get lost in translation. They will have objective statements, and you folks will say, we got a problem and we want you to go find these grants. And that'll be their mission, to come back in a timely manner to say, this is what we have. What I do is I pass on to the town manager anything that comes through WRC as your commissioner. And that's why this grant landed in front of us, like, whoa, wait, I know we have some needs. Let's get this in the front of the folks to make the decisions. And so that's what this board will do, because VDCC and WRC, they work hand in hand, and there's this bigger initiative, and I sit on the board, so I see it, and the state's pushing down. We have a lot of big projects coming our way. We have a watershed, big one coming through Saxons River, and looking at all that stuff. And so we have a lot on our plate starting next year. So this committee could help us ensure.
The problem we get is, if you even handed us $1 million, when I first got on, we had one goal, was to develop the industrial park. We were looking at sewer and how we've been I was pushing hard for this committee. And then all of a sudden, the whole industrial park got taken up by the solar array panels. It's totally gone. So now we have nothing left in town to develop, because once it got down to the flood zone, we're not allowed to develop any of that land. That was the only piece of land that we had that we thought that we could totally change our town and how it looked. So now I'm going, like, I don't know what we need the money for, other than what I addressed with Susan, is like, wait, our town's getting older, so we're not going to be a business town. We're not going to generate employment and all that. But can we actually offer a service which would be a nice facility to put people in it that would want to live here? I mean, that's different than trying to develop an industrial park or develop business, because I just think we're handicapped in Westminster, what we can do.
Well, I think you need housing for younger families. You need to bring in the youth. You have nothing to bring us not that I'm young, in anymore either. We
Yeah.
have no housing here, you know?
John and I actually discussed this, and we talked about Princeton Commons, and again, when you have a separate housing index, we talked about this on the board. That was a discussion before COVID. Are we taking an old home, putting all these people in it, turning it into a rental situation? Now we realize because of COVID, there is a health issue now by consolidating people into a single unit or a single silo, as you said, one structure. Whether or not they should be rentals or homes that add to the tax base is a good discussion. But,
We're agnostic.
right.
I mean, honestly, our job is to sort of help support whatever local goals you have. And then we kind of like work regionally. We think about jobs and where there, where there is industrial land, where we can grow businesses, whatever. But our job is to support your local goals when it comes to this kind of discussion. And I think it's been for a long time, like elder housing, senior housing, and that will have other benefits. That will release housing for working people. And so that's an economic development goal, because there are no people to work here. And if we released 30 homes in Westminster because people could move into a great elder housing situation, that's 30 homes that could be bought by people who can take jobs. And so it all ties together. We take a really big view of economic development, so.
no, and we need to really bottle this up.
Yes,
but
right.
again, Sarah, if you're still there too, you don't need buildings. The fact is that the future office is molecular. So I would just say, I would take a different approach. I would say Westminster offers a tremendous potential in the future for younger people, for new families, because the future office is not driving 5 days a week. Offices are going away. The footprint for traditional hard facilities like the office space is going away. Companies will save tons of money that they can reinvest into people and technology and remove themselves from the burden of the large office. It is happening. We're not going back to the way we were. So I find this, I'm just saying, I find this a pretty good idea to at least try.
And one thing I want to add that our Mr. Moderator spoke of, needs 3 people for the school board, as they're now a new tie-in. Well, that would be one of the positions, because our school system is very integral in our growth. So I know for my child, she's moved away and gone to college. I'm hoping she wants to return here and teach, because that's what she left to do. And so I see the needs and wants list, more of what we don't have here. And I'm like, okay, well, how do we potentially bring our children back to be the next generations here? Focus on it.
What do you need?
I need a motion to vote from you folks to establish this committee. I'm willing to do that now, or if that's your call. Everything's in your wheelhouse.
I'd like to see us bring it back.
What would you like?
Just bring it back for another discussion.
Okay.
And bring back term limits, in a little bit more of a goal of more of an outline of what this committee is actually chaired to do, okay? On it. These were just pretty broad things, but I wanted to see it more orientated towards Westminster.
That, I don't have a problem. Like I said, I brought back what you asked for, and I'm okay. If you want us to dial in a whole plan, I mean, we're gonna definitely need your input on it. We can't create this for you. What you guys have to feed back to us. And then
I guess
I'm okay with that. So yeah, if that's what you want, yeah. But if we can keep this on the agenda, I guess.
Let me say bring it back for some more discussion. Yeah.
So we will table to the next meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I just think we need a little.
Yeah, no.
We've heard everything. Now I think that they need to hear from the select board of how we feel and where we go. Not that I'm for or against it, but I just think that any of these committees need really goals from the select board of where we want them to go. And it's really not just the select board, it's the whole town of where it's going to be benefit.
Okay, so let's put our thinking caps on for our next meeting. I hate to burden anyone to come back, but if they could, we'll make it a priority to at least review this and come back with, provide John with some of our feedback.
One note, just in clarity, this was something that was passed down from the state of Vermont saying, hey, you have this. So I'm going to say, they don't generally say do things. We should consider, and I appreciate that. So I just want to make sure that this didn't start with me.
No, I know.
No.
And I'm just trying to help get us through this process.
No, and we appreciate it. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for being
Thank you
here.
so much.
And we will tackle this. We will continue and push this forward next meeting.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the welcome packet.
Yes, Pauline, the town clerk, has ordered some folders that we can use, and she and I have been, we're going to meet, we've been working separately on stuff to put in the welcome packet.
Thank you.
So essentially, it's a list of what
Thanks for
people,
coming.
information that people want.
Okay.
So, anyway, it
Great.
continues.
Adoption of the rules of procedure for Vermont's boards, we're going to table, please. As with the bidding process, we have already voted and approved to go into 2 executive session formats. So I will move immediately to the manager's report.
Just one item tonight, Veterans Day is tomorrow, but the town office thought it would be better to observe it on Friday, since we all have meetings and people needing to be in the office tomorrow. So it's going to be open tomorrow, the 11th, Friday, the 12th, we will be closing in observance of Veterans Day.
Terrific. Boards and commissions.
Nothing to report at this time.
Any other business?
Nothing.
Okay. Date of the next meeting will be November 23rd.
Okay, this is now Tuesday, because we were just talking, Kevin and I, it's up to you folks, of course, but we do it every year. Wednesday is the day before Thanksgiving. You folks have plans, you know, traveling, etc. So we were talking about doing it Tuesday. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Just gives us a little bit of a window to. So
Okay.
Tuesday, the 23rd?
Yep.
Okay, I don't think we have to move into have a motion for executive session.
No.
We've already done it.
Just, all we have to do is say.
Okay. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.